Go.
All right, so once again, welcome to all of you here, of course, and those watching through Facebook Live. It's good to have you all with us and to join us today. I know that we have several folks who are out or are out ill or who are traveling, so want to be sure and welcome you all. Will you pray with me? Loving God, open our hearts and minds to your voice. May all we speak and hear strengthen us to be your hands and heart in the world. In all your names, amen.
Amen.
The golden rule. A form of it appears in most faith traditions, as I was saying just a few minutes ago. Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Jain, Sikh, and several others. Sometimes it's stated positively, as Jesus does, and sometimes it's the other way around. Don't do to others what you don't want done to you. But whatever the words used, the meaning is the same. Treat others as well as you would treat yourself. And Jesus expands on this, as some of the other teachers do too, to say that this applies to everyone, not only our friends and families and those we care about, but to everyone. And of course, it's much harder to be kind and generous to people who are not that way to us. It's difficult to feel very generous to someone who's hurt you or even endangered you, right? Or simply been rude or hard to deal with. I know with my mind and my heart as well that people who are hurting are the ones most likely to hurt others. One of those basic rules about psychology. So if someone is nasty to me, they're probably hurting somehow, even if they couldn't put it into words themselves. But my first impulse, natural impulse, is to be angry or to want to lash out or retaliate in kind, or at the very least, throw some snark at them. You know, be a little wisecracking. But that's not what Jesus is calling for, of course. Two things I have found about trying to apply this to people who've been unkind. One is that praying for them can help me understand them. I was once in a small group. We were formed to support each other as we tried to behave more in accordance with our faith. It was a discipleship group. And we had created a rule, which was a set of guidelines for us to follow. And that was rule in the sense of lines on a page, guidelines, not rule as in a law, but that we would be in trouble with the others if we didn't, follow them. But just sort of, this is the way I want to try to live. And one of them, I don't recall the exact wording, was to pray for people who angered or hurt or upset us, people with whom we were in conflict. This wasn't difficult for me to do when I was upset with a friend or a relative or a colleague, but there were others for whom it was very hard to pray. And that was why I discovered the real challenge of it. A difficult boss, a local politician whose policies I thought were wrong-minded, or my friend's ex-husband who was he was being very nasty to her and to their son. So I sat there and tried to find something to say besides make them nicer people or make them see my side. And I was trying to find something else to say, because that just seemed sort of, inadequate, sort of a sliding out of the challenge. And I thought, well, if I knew that someone was praying for me, what would I ask them to pray for? How would I want them to treat me? And then, what might those people, frustrating as they were to me, be in need of prayer for? What kind of prayer did they need? In other words, what pain or struggle might these people be in? Could I pray for that, even if I didn't know exactly what it was? And I found that I could, and it changed things. I thought about my difficult boss, for instance. I'll use her as the example because that's way far, it was 3 jobs ago at least, before I was even a pastor, and why she might want or need prayers. She was in and out of the office. She demanded perfection all the time. She made arbitrary decisions. She was a nitpicker, and she was more than a little bit arrogant. She was very, very difficult to work with. Well, the thing is, she was going through a very messy and difficult divorce for reasons I could completely understand. I knew why she was doing it, and I understood and supported her in that. But unfortunately, it also involved our workplace. So it made things a little messy. And I realized she was trying to balance so many things. What was best for her family in the divorce itself, dealing with her soon-to-be ex-husband, and a demanding job. No wonder she was on everyone all the time. Now, it didn't make it any easier to work with her or for her, and we certainly didn't become friends. She was still a pain to work for, okay? But I understood a bit more about why. And so I could pray for her to find peace and the assurance that the company's work was good, and therefore she didn't have to worry so much and didn't have to nitpick and didn't have to do the micromanaging, that she would find strength to deal with the unpleasantness around the divorce and so on. I don't know that my prayers made a difference in her life, and the effectiveness of prayer is a whole different topic anyway. But it made a difference in my life. I stopped disliking her and learned to brush off her sharp criticism and to simply go on with the best work I could, knowing that she would probably still find fault with it, but knowing that I had done what I could and that the issue was her, not me, right? I was much healthier, much healthier. But more than that, by doing for her what I would hope others would do for me, I was able to understand her temperament better. I brought more of that hope and that goodness and support and encouragement into the world. Now, the other thing about doing good to those who are cruel is that it breaks that cycle of anger, frustration, and conflict. One of the other women in that small group was focusing on her brother as a person with whom she was at odds, for whom she prayed. And I don't recall now, as I said, it was many years ago, but I don't recall the reason for their falling out, but they were so angry with each other that they would go to their mother's house at different times on, Christmas and Easter and so on, in order to avoid seeing each other. That was how bad things had gotten. But as she began praying for them, she decided that the cause of their argument, the cause of it, whatever that was beside the point. She wasn't going to fuss over whatever it was, and she wasn't going to let him prod her into anger either. They were siblings, and the rest of their family needed them to get along. And she did love him. I mean, he was her brother. So she stopped responding to his needling and to his comments. She talked about the good things in each other's life. She made sure she was there at her mother's when he was the next holiday, and refused to be drawn into their old disagreement. Again, it didn't happen overnight, and he still wasn't the sibling she was closest to, but the conflict itself went away. She responded to him as she wanted him to respond to her, with kindness and with grace and with an attempt at understanding. She broke the cycle. Now, sometimes this doesn't work, as I said. The conflict continues, as with my boss, who continued to be moody and temperamental. But all you can do is what you can do. Treat them as you would want to be treated. Protect yourself if you need to, because sometimes there are those toxic people who are dangerous. But treat them with the consideration that you would want. No, it's not easy. I've been through bad breakups and hard jobs and colleagues I resisted talking to because they just upset me so much. And frequently I don't succeed in my ambition to treat them as well as I should, but I try. Because I know that I can be hard to deal with too. I'm sure there are many people who said or say, "Oh, please don't put Martha on this committee." Or, "Why is she in this small group? Why is she hanging out?" Or just simply, "Wow, is Martha irritating?" So I know that I am not everything that I could be. And this is where that reading from Corinthians comes in. Paul is talking about earthly bodies and spiritual bodies, that people will be raised in the afterlife in a different body, and it's going to be so different that we can't even conceive of it. Again, quite apart from your belief in the afterlife or whatever. This concept has been used by theologians who want to separate humans into almost two natures, that the earthly nature, which they view as being lower and in need of repentance and uplift, and spiritual natures, which are higher and holier. And earthly natures are generally tied to our bodies, right? So bodies are not good, right? Whereas the spirit is all good, and that's what you wanted to deal with. Augustine. Anyway, they say we should let go of the earthly and cling to the spiritual. But the reality is that regardless of whether you have faith in a resurrection of the body or not, we are not all one or the other, earthly or spiritual. We each contain the best of humanity and the worst, too. We like to think about the good parts and hate to admit that we have faults, but of course we do. And we want others to be kind, to overlook those faults and see only our good. We can do that for others as we want them to do for us. We can look for the good, or at the very least, we can try to understand why what they do angers us, or makes us afraid, or hurts us, and then understand them maybe a bit better. As I said, it's not always easy. Frequently it's very difficult. But as my friend found out, at least the cycle can be broken. When we do for others what we would want done for ourselves, we may not change anyone, but we can change ourselves. Understanding, maybe even forgiving others, reaching out as we would want them to reach out to us, and that, my friends, is a worthy goal. So, can we take a breath the next time someone upsets us? Can we try to understand them, or at least their actions? Can we treat them as we would want to be treated? In all God's names, amen.
Amen.